And welcome to Patriots 4th and 2. I am your host today, Derek Havens, and joining me as always is Mr. Steve Balestrieri. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. In today's show, we're going to be talking about the Patriots' loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, as well as preview the game against the Buffalo Bills this coming week. A lot to talk about. We got obviously the recap, the preview, and a couple of interesting anecdotes from the locker room after the game and throughout the week, some personnel decisions, and we know the sky is falling for sure, but just to double check, let's go over to weather with Steve. How we doing, Steve?
I'm doing great. It's not a good time to be a Patriots fan or a player at this point, because I think, there's going to be some big decisions made after this season. And right now, there's several players that should be a little nervous. But before we get into all that, I just wanted to relay a message from our other co-host, Russ Goldman.
Oh yeah, you have a message from Russ. So we have.
Yes.
I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I need to hear what.
It's actually not quote unquote a football thing, although it had to do with the NFL. Russ just wanted to say that he appreciated the NFL's moment of silence this week for the victims of the terrorist attack in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, his soccer team and the soccer league that he covers in a different podcast, they're very lukewarm and over the way they reported it. I know Russ was very unhappy. He's very unhappy with his team. He actually wrote them an email, and I won't get into that, but just telling them that the way they handled it and their message was very, let's just say, middle of the road, not saying anything per se. So he was quite upset about that. I talked to him this morning.
I am disappointed because I was sitting here because I thought it was a football take and I could make fun of Russ because any opportunity I have to do that, I love to. But instead he sends out a heartfelt message, and now I just feel like an idiot. So I thought the NFL did a good job with how they did that. I think that obviously it's kind of a hot button issue, politically, depending on where people stand and everything. I don't want to get into all that, but I will say that I'm keeping people, kind of in my thoughts. I would love to have peace. I just know that's not probably a realistic situation, but that's what I'm hoping for. So hope all those people can stay safe. It's a terrible, terrible situation going on. But anyway, so thank you for the message. Thank you for the message, Russ. That was a good one.
And it's being Jewish himself. He's been taking this very hard.
Yeah.
So we won't dwell on that, but yeah, all our thoughts go to Russ. We miss him on the podcast. So
I do miss him. We got to get him on here in the next week or two because I need to get us. I know him and I will probably argue because I know he's going to say, he enjoyed his team winning 6 Super Bowls and everything's great. But, I'm growing extremely frustrated, Steve. And I'm not growing frustrated. I've been frustrated for weeks. You know this after my apoplectic calls to you after the game every single week.
Hey, we're sailing in waters that haven't been sailed in a long time around here.
Well, Steve, to me, I want to say this, and look, this is a little different than how we just talked about opening the show, but let me just say this. I think the reason I'm as frustrated with the team as I am right now, it's not because they're a bad team and they're losing games. I mean, that doesn't help. It's not fun that they're losing, right? I mean, I'll say if you're a fan of a team on any sport, you want them to win. I mean, that's what your fandom comes rooted in. But I feel frustrated because I almost feel like, to use your boat analogy, they are kind of like a boat without a rudder in some cases. I just don't know if they know the direction they're going. I mean that from top to bottom, personnel standpoint. I just asked you if we were going to do this, but I'm going to lead off with it anyway, apparently. I thought a good example of that was the Devontae Parker answer talking about his drop. He said it, might have hit him in the fingertips, lack of accountability answer on what we both considered was Mac Jones' one of his best throws of the entire season late in that fourth quarter. And I just think it shows you, Steve, right now that there's just so much lack of leadership on this team, the accountability. The guys they've invested in, Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, on multi-year deals. It's like, it just that to me is the most frustrating thing. Sure, the talent level is frustrating, and you know what, they're losing, and that stinks. And guess what? We all knew. I've been saying this. I mean, well, and I don't mean just me, but like, I have been one of the many people saying this for years, that we knew when Brady left there was going to be an overhaul of this team. And they didn't want to kind of dive into it. They were trying to remain competitive, and the bill is due at some point where you have to overhaul the roster. I totally understand that. But who are you going to invest in to be part of your new core? Okay, and what kind of leadership do you have in the locker room? Devin McCourty said on WEEI, I believe earlier today, talking about how he doesn't care about Devontae Parker's comments in the media, but it would matter to him as a teammate how he responds in the locker room. I have no idea what he said to his teammates in the locker room. And I think that's a good point by McCourty, and someone who certainly would know a lot better than me, Steve. But I also, just from a fan perspective, it's not only that you're losing, but you're not able to just sit there and take it on the chin and say, look, it's my fault. My job is to go out there and catch the ball, and I didn't do that, and I threw a good pass. And then that one, you got to have it. That to me is frustrating, Steve. So end of my rant. Go to you.
Yeah, and in fact, I totally agree with you there, because it's not okay if it's strictly a talent issue where teams are a ton better than you and you're losing. That's one thing. But we know that they're better than this. We know that they have the talent. Not saying they're going to be a contender, but they have the talent to win football games. And the constant shooting themselves in the foot with these, like, the game's at 4:05 and they're preparing for a 8:05 game. It's like the first halves are just painful.
They're sleepwalking. They're just sleepwalking through the beginning of these games.
Yeah, and then like in the second halves of these games, with the exception of the Dallas and New Orleans game, you see them put forth a much better effort, and you can see that this is a team that should be much better than their record. I mean, honestly, this team could be 4-2 or 0-6 easily. I mean, that even the game they won against the Jets, it came down to that play in the end zone. So, but this is a team that could be a lot better. And that's the galling part, is you don't expect that out of a Patriots football team to be playing under their potential. Usually it's, well, I'm not going to say usually, but in the past they were better than the sum of their parts.
Yeah, we've been saying that for 2 years now.
Yeah,
they're criminally underperforming, and Dale, Dale chimes in from Facebook, and appreciate you listening to the show and contributing, Dale. His comments are inexcusable. Inexcusable. Need to stop that. I mean, it is inexcusable, because to me, Steve, again, if they're not a good team and they're rebuilding, and but they go up there and they say the right things, it's frustrating. It's disappointing. But it's more understanding than this. This isn't like an understanding thing. Like I know there's a lot of people who have differing opinions on what's going to happen with Bill Belichick and all that at the end of the year. I have no idea what's going to happen, and obviously that's a much bigger conversation. I will tell you this: there's no way someone who cares about the team like Robert Kraft doesn't care about those kind of comments that Devontae Parker made. That had to piss him off, because he cares about the team as much as anybody, because he's a fan first, and he wants to put a good product on the field. I said this last week, and I'll reiterate it now. They were so upset by the way last year went, they put out a letter almost immediately to the fans that they wanted to go ahead and change things. Now they're worse off than they were last year, and then you get answers like that coming out of the locker room. That kind of stuff has got to rub him the wrong way. It's got to. So anyway, I didn't really want to start there, but that's kind of where the conversation and where it wanted to go. So let's get back into the game here. I want to quickly first say, please subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. It keeps us high on the podcast ranking so other Patriots fans can find us. And we appreciate those of you who are tuning in live, who download later, who comment. It's awesome. We've had some new people kind of comment in the last few weeks, which is cool. So feel free. I'll share, the ones I can as we go along. So Steve, let's talk about, the Raiders in general. I thought, again, another slow start for the team. It's funny. It's not funny. I think Ezekiel Elliott has kind of turned into a much bigger role than I was anticipating for this team, Steve. And I don't know if this has been said anywhere. I almost feel like Stevenson is not 100% healthy. I don't know. There's something weird about what's going on in that backfield. What are your thoughts on that? I know that's kind of a random place to start, but I feel like it's noticeable more and more every week where Stevenson's just not showing the burst we're used to. And I feel like Elliott's maximizing some opportunities, and good thing they have him because they need him. I mean, it's not necessarily resulting in wins, but I can't imagine where they'd be without him.
Yeah. And again, I mean, when you talk about veteran leadership, I think this is a guy that's stepping up.
Yes, I agree. 100% agree.
He seems like, everything we hear about him, he's all positive. He's a mentor to some of the younger players, and he's been there and he's played in some big games in his career. So, I think having a guy like him, from that type of leadership potential is worth its weight in gold to begin with. But you're looking at him taking a much better, bigger share, I should say, a bigger share of the load than we anticipated. But, he's producing. I mean, he had that one touchdown that got called back. And, that would have been, it was right after the Raiders made it 10-0. Jones hits him a little flare out in the flat, and he turns it, 74-yard touchdown. There was holding on the call, and I totally agree with that. I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty, but those are the kind of killer mistakes that are just, hampering this team, because that would have been an absolute game changer right there. That's how you answer. That's how the Patriots used to answer. Team goes up early, you come right back, hit a big touchdown. Now it's anyone's ball game again.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the kind of mistakes that they keep making. But in regards to Elliott, I thought he ran real well. I thought Stevenson ran very well in the second half.
For you to say.
Yeah. But no, I think we should see more of Elliott. I mean, he's definitely, proven his worth here. And I, for one, would like to see it.
Yeah. I thought, again, it just, there's so many things about this team right now that are just not good football. And they're consistent mistakes, Steve. I mean, we're seeing a lot of things from week in to week out that they're making some of the same mistakes over and over again. It brings me back to what I brought up last week. And again, I'm not the only person who said this, but we did talk about it, talking about that 2009 quote against the Saints about Belichick not being able to get this team the way he wants them to. When you make the same mistakes like that consistently, week in, week out, somewhere along, whether it's Belichick to the players, the other coaches to the players, there is some kind of break in communication, Steve, because they're not getting their message through. Plain and simple. Every week, it's some of the same stuff. It's almost like a bad Groundhog Day movie, the famous Bill Murray movie, where it's just like it's like the same thing over and over again. It's like I wasn't even really that mad on Sunday because I was so pissed the previous few weeks that I was like, you know what? Whatever. It's fine. Like they pushed me to the point of past upset.
Exactly. I mean, and we always say they're uncharacteristic mistakes, but they actually are now.
Yeah.
Because they've been doing this for 6 games this year, and it carried from the end of last year. We saw them at the end of last year keep making the same mistakes over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And, now it is characteristic of them. And, I've been one of the people that have said, they need to keep Bill and blah, blah, blah. But I'm starting to wonder now if the team is tuning him out.
Yeah, something is going on with the team where there's just, like I said, it's some kind of a disconnect. They said they needed to start over, do a little reset. I don't know. I mean, how did it look to you at the beginning of the game? Didn't look like much of a reset to me.
No, it's like like I said at the outset. I mean, it seems like they're preparing for a game 3 hours in advance. Because when they take the field, they look like they're running under mud. That in these first quarters, and it's inexcusable. It really is, and it's not fair to. I mean, this offense isn't made to come from behind. It's not built that way.
Right.
And, when you're constantly putting yourself, early in games down by double digits, it throws your game plan right out the window. If you had a high scoring, high octane offense, 10 points, 14 points is nothing. Okay. But when you have this offense and you're putting yourself in the hole, you're supposed to be a running team, and it takes you out of the running game right there. I mean, and they just don't have the horses for that.
No, they don't. And Todd writes in, the whole thing is bizarre. It is bizarre.
I agree.
Honestly, it's like I honestly am. It's like I don't even really know who I'm watching anymore. Like, honestly, and it's like I said, it's one thing to be bad. It's a different thing to be bad and look like they're not responding to the coach. It looks like it's bad because people aren't taking accountability for their actions. It's just a weird. I don't know. The whole thing has like a gross kind of feeling to it. And I honestly, anyone who's listening live, anyone who's listening afterwards, send in your comments. If you weren't, I just want to ask a simple question, okay? If you were against them firing Bill Belichick before, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to that opinion. Is how they're playing now making you change your mind at least a little bit? Because I can understand, Russ talk. I don't want to put words in Russ's mouth, but Russ, has really typically been on like the Bill can coach as long as he wants to. He's earned that right. Okay. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but I think that's a fair characterization of how he feels. And I get that, but I don't know how they're playing right now and how they're seemingly, I want to say responding, but I really should say not responding to coaching. I just wonder if that changes what people are thinking, because I feel like it has to, at least a little bit, even a small percentage. So I don't know. Something to think about, Steve.
Yeah, I'd also like to add one more point to this.
Please.
I don't understand the personnel decisions on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can argue about whether they picked the right guy, the wrong guy. We can do that till the cows come home. But
we will,
and we will. But in game, I mean, Devontae Parker, and it seems like we're snowballing on him this week for obvious reasons. But
yeah, he's going to get piled on.
I mean, he takes no accountability for that play. I mean, any other receiver would have said, you know what, that one should have been a catch. And but he's been consistently playing 100% of the snaps. On Sunday, he played 75% of the snaps.
We got a guest appearance. I guess my dog is looking for attention.
My dog just walked in the door. So, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But
yeah, but anyway.
People who are watching will know exactly. He just came into the screen. So
yeah, mine walked in at the same time. So if you hear snoring in the background, that's what it is. Yeah. But, he played 75% of the offensive snaps. He's your X. He's supposed to be your go-to guy. 1 catch for 7 yards. Mm-hmm. And this is an outlier. This is happening consistently. And I don't understand why they insist on leaving him out there for all these plays when he's not producing.
Well, and someone on Twitter told, was saying before the game, it looks like it, this was before inactives and everything was like, can you imagine, if DeMario is able to play, if it's like, DeMario Douglas, Tyquan Thornton, Kayshon Boutte, and who was the fourth guy they listed?
Kendrick Bourne.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah, Kendrick Bourne. And I said, honestly, I would love that. I'd
Me
try
too.
it. Just who cares? You're already losing. Like I
Right.
don't need to see any more Devontae Parker. I know what he is. He has a role. He's an NFL receiver. He has a role on the team. He doesn't need to be playing 100% of the snaps. I'm good with Juju. I nothing against him personally. He seems like a really nice dude. I don't care. Maybe this makes me cold. I'm sure there's a lot of nice people. I don't need to see him run around on one leg. It was a bad mistake by the team. I don't think he's going to get healthier, Steve. I think this is kind of what he is now. They need explosiveness. They need to shake it up, play the kids. Okay.
Well,
and I mean that with all due respect to the quote unquote kids. I know I'm only 33, but they're kids in sports terms. Play them. Let's just see what we got here. You know what I mean?
I said the same thing. I was just on with Mike Diabate on his Locked On show, and I said the same thing. Play the kids. I mean, and going back to the coaching decisions, I understand Boutte, his first game, opening day as a rookie, playing a team that was in the Super Bowl last year. He didn't get his feet down.
Yep.
Okay. So is he like banished for life to Siberia because he didn't get his feet down? Thank you, Todd.
Yep. Todd agrees.
Yeah. I mean, how other teams approach this is like, okay, the guy made a mistake. They throw him right out there again. And if he keeps making the mistakes, then okay, then you can sit him down. It was his first NFL game. At least, like Todd said, I was about to say it. At least he caught the football.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't get his foot down, but he caught the ball. And that's more than you can say what Parker's doing, what Juju's doing. I want to see more Thornton, more DeMario Douglas, more Kendrick Bourne. I want to see Boutte. I mean, look, you're 1-5.
Yeah.
Right? So if you roll these kids out against the Bills, it's not what they're expecting you to do. So at least it makes them reevaluate how they're going to approach this, and it gives you a heck of a lot more speed and athleticism on the field.
I can understand that mentality of maybe not putting a rookie or a young player in position to screw something up when you are a loaded team making a Super Bowl run like they did all those years ago. We're not in the same place. And I understand Bill's consistent, but this isn't about consistency. He didn't get a second foot down. There's no reason he should be on the field. They need to shake something up. They literally have one of the worst receiving corps in the entire league. They can't move the ball. They can't do anything. Just switch it up. Figure it out. I mean, they have to figure it out. It's just so aggravating. It's stuff like that where I just would love to get a real answer. I know that we can't get one, but I would just love to get a real answer on what it possibly could be. Maybe it's a practice thing. He's lining up in the wrong spot. I don't know. All I know is that, as Todd said, as you said, in the first week, in the opening week of the season, we saw this guy get open and catch the ball. Yes, he had some big issues towards the end. I would love to see him, get another opportunity. I don't know what Dale just wrote in and said, but I'll see if I can read that here in a second. See if I can share it. Steve, I mean, all in all, again, as you said, they're 1-5. They're looking right now down the barrel of 1-7 against the Bills and the Dolphins these next 2 weeks. I don't want to do this 100%. If you were to lose these next 2 games, again, I'm not saying they have no chance of winning these games. I'm not going to pick them to win either one of these games because I just don't think they can score, which is a huge issue.
Not unless Buffalo and Miami's team bus gets in a wreck.
Well, I mean, we've seen stranger things happen. Sometimes It's just not somebody's day, and I still don't trust Buffalo at all. If anything, I trust Miami more. I really like the way Mike McDaniel's doing things down there, and Buffalo to me still has that Jekyll and Hyde thing, and I don't know. There's
They
something
still
weird
look
about that team.
clunky on offense.
It does, and Josh Allen's awesome, and they have some great players. I think it's McDermott, Steve. I really liked him when he came out. I don't know. I feel like there's something weird about it. I'm going on a diatribe I wasn't expecting to, but there's something about that Buffalo team that doesn't sit well. I don't know. I just wouldn't put my money on them. But if the Patriots do lose, getting back to the point, these next 2 weeks, do you try to become a seller? Do you try to, if you feel like you're not going to retain Josh Uche, do you try to trade him to a team that needs some pass rush help, to a contender? Do you look at a Hunter Henry or a Mike Gesicki? I'm not saying that I would do any of these things. I'm just throwing out names. Matt Judon's not here anymore. I feel like maybe Jonathan Jones is someone you could get something out of. I don't think any of these guys I'm mentioning, because they're all on their last years of their deals. I don't know about Jones, but the other guys I know are, maybe you get a third, fourth round pick. I know that's not much, but you have to think about draft positioning and assets to build your team. Are you interested, Steve, in selling potentially?
I don't know. I mean, that's definitely going to be a conversation they have inside that building. I mean, there's still 11 games left. These next two, I mean, unless we see something drastically different overnight where all of a sudden all the lights come on, I just don't see them winning either of these two games. And at that point, then, especially, I'm sure they've had internal discussions about guys that they want to keep and guys that they were probably going to let walk. I would look into trading them at that point. But moving forward this week, you're 1-5. Why not trot these young guys out there on offense? Yeah. And at least, put some speed and athleticism out there where it's not going to be the same plodding attack where, you're going to go down the field 5 and 6 yards at a time. You can't do that.
I want to share Dale's comment. It's a little long, but for people who I'll read it out loud, and for people who are watching, you can read it. If people aren't, I'll read it for you. Dale Burnett writes in from Facebook. Most people have thought Bill Belichick could dictate his terms for departure, but now it's obvious he's lost the team. I think Stevenson's production, the Parker's comments, the Parker extension, the whiff on Juju all changed the narrative. The record, the team attitude are all symptoms of losing. I don't see this team resetting. The will is not there. And honestly, I couldn't agree more with specifically that last part. I mean, all of it's true. They do feel the attitude and the will. I don't see them, Steve, when I'm rewatching these games. I don't know if you've seen something different. It doesn't seem like a team that's really quit, like not trying, but it just, put it this way. When you go into a street fight or you go into any kind of matchup from a physical standpoint, and you have that mindset of you're going to win, we talked about this before. I think the prime Brady Patriots team had a lot of these teams beat before the game was even started, because it was just like the mystique. It was like, the primetime game in Gillette versus Tom Brady. Teams came in expecting it was going to be hard or they're going to lose. Right now, it seems like people around the NFL are, and you trust me, people are piling on the Patriots everywhere, Steve.
Oh, of course.
But teams smell blood in the water with this team right now. And Dale, I appreciate the comment. And we see Todd agreed too. I appreciate the comment, Dale, and I honestly agree with you. But I think, in another, to kind of add on, I think that, to your comment, things are symptoms of losing. I honestly feel like right now they kind of come off as a losing team, Steve, and they look like a hurt animal, and people can see that. And so that's why they're kind of going for the jugular early in these games, because they're not afraid. that if they take those chances, that the Patriots are going to take advantage of those chances. That's why we saw the Cowboys. I think I went on that whole big, thing about the Cowboys a couple weeks ago, going for the fake field goal for, I think it was to send a message to their own team. And they were trying to put this game away early because I thought that they felt the Patriots were going to be able to go ahead and take advantage and capitalize on those mistakes, Steve. And I think you're seeing it now, week in, week out. It's another issue to me of where Belichick has this team mentally. And again, I don't think that they're just flat out like not trying. I'm sure that there are some guys who are starting to care less and less, but I'm just saying I don't think it's I don't think it's all a will thing, Steve. I think some of it is just it's like a mentality. It's like a poison right now to them a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, I mean, they just keep making the same mistakes every week. And it's like, to me, if it's a physical mistake or whatever, that's one thing. But these mental errors, I think it comes down to coaching.
Yep.
The Patriots, back in the day weren't making those mistakes. They would prey upon other teams making those mistakes. And now the shoe has definitely gone on the other foot.
And a lot of times with Bill in the past, Steve, you know it as well as I do, and as well a lot of people who listen to the show do. A lot of times, Bill pretty much played the waiting game with other teams. He said, we're not going to make mistakes. We're going to do these things. And if we can't beat this team, they are going to beat themselves in front of us. And then we're going to take advantage of it when we need to. I mean, how many games did we watch this team beat another team because they did something stupid at the end of the game? And that's basically what this team has become. They just keep doing these stupid things. At some point throughout the game, there's something wrong there. And I don't know. It's a little bit of coaching, Steve. It's a systematic issue, really, from top to bottom. It's players, it's coaches, and it all stems from Bill. And Bill should absolutely get a lot of blame for this, but it's everyone. I mean, there's a lot of people to hold accountable. It's not just Bill; it's the entire team. But because he is the kind of patriarch, I guess, of the entire organization. I mean, he's the one who put everyone in place, essentially. Aside from the Crafts, you have to go back to Bill and say, it's not good enough.
Right, and this game was kind of a microcosm of that. I mean, the same mistakes. Mac overthrows a wide open Hunter Henry interception. The holding penalty on Ezekiel Elliott, it takes away a 74-yard touchdown. It's like, my Lord, Then, at the end of the game, they're backed up. Mac Jones, like you said, probably throws his best pass of the year. It traveled about 50 yards in the air.
50 yards on a dot. It was had good.
That was an absolute dime. And I still had issues with the way Parker played it, because if you're dusting a cornerback or a safety, you let the ball come down where you can catch it right here. When there's a guy on your hip, you raise your arms and use that 80-20 height, right?
Right.
That contested pass. He puts his arms up, he probably catches the football. And then to take no accountability for that after the game, But I was thinking after the game, and I watched that play probably too many times to count, because I'm just trying to think, a good team makes that play right there. Your quarterback,
it's funny because if you go back to the previous week against the Raiders, the Packers on Monday night, there was that Jordan Love throw that was late to Christian Watson at the end of the game. And he didn't go up and get the ball either. He waited for the ball to come to him. And then the defensive back, I forget who it was I almost said Oakland, for Las Vegas, intercepted the ball, and that was the end of the game. And it was a very different play than this one, but it was a similar thing where he's kind of just waiting to get the ball, waiting to catch it in the basket. And
just didn't go up and get it. Your contested catch guy is supposed to contest the ball, not wait for it to come into the basket when
Right.
he has someone, trailing behind on his hip.
Yeah.
And that, it's just a microcosm. And then the next play, they get a penalty, right?
Mhm.
And then
Which
the
is like
sack.
wash, rinse, repeat for this team right now. It's like mistake, penalty, positive play, penalty. like they just can't. There's just no traction. There's no like
No,
one thing
and
after
to
another.
me, it comes down to I think it's coaching. I mean, what else can it be?
Mm,
These guys are perfectly capable of catching the football.
yeah.
Why don't they do it in crunch time? And like I was saying, after the game, I watched that play, and I'm thinking to myself, not comparing any of these players, just saying these are the quote unquote X guys. Stephon Diggs dropped that ball.
No.
Hill dropped that ball. Even Devontae Adams on the other team. Would he have dropped that there? I don't think
Right.
so.
No.
You
Of
know what I
course.
mean?
Of
I
course.
mean,
No, I agree. But we got to step aside real quick, Steve, because we've gone 36 minutes without a break. So I want to make sure we get one in here for podcast purposes because
rant's over.
we could continue to bitch if we want to. We could do another 2 hours of the same damn conversation, but we won't. We won't. We'll turn the page and we'll get into the Bills here. But let's take a quick break for podcast purposes, and we'll be back right after this. Okay, and we are back on Patriots 4th and 2. Again, Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri here with you, both from PatsFans.com. Again, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate it. Those rankings help us keep us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. I also want to thank Russ Goldman for his comments earlier on in the show, and thank Ian for his continued therapy to me, which I should be thanking you. I think you and Ian should both bill me weekly for listening to me bitch for 30 minutes about this team. But we're back, and we had a little therapy session of our own here, talking about the Raiders game, talking about where the Patriots are right now, what the issues are, and look, all that aside, Steve, this team has a really big challenge in front of them this week versus the Buffalo Bills. We know how Josh Allen. It's funny, Josh Allen. I was talking to somebody about this over the weekend, and they're a football fan, but not like a really big football fan. Have no big affiliation to either one of these teams. And he was like, "Oh, he's like, for some reason, I always felt like the Patriots just always used to beat the Bills." And I was like, "They dominated the Bills for years." And even Josh Allen, when he first started, I mean, do you remember how many times, like his first few years, it would be like 3rd and 7, guy would be wide open on a crossing route, and Josh Allen would just like airmail him, just like totally miss him. And it's like he has just locked in, especially against this team. He seems to play really good football. I think it's secretly because he used to love the Patriots and he still does. He has to hurt them so we can hate them. That's my theory. But Steve, I think for
He
this
wore a
game
Tom
here,
Brady jersey when he was a kid.
yep. And I want to mention this too. Speaking of the Bills, is that Damian Harris was taken off the field in an ambulance last week, which was really scary. Really scary incident. Seems like he's okay though, which is great. But this team, Steve, we talked about him. They have their own set of issues. Not quite in the Patriots category. Okay, they're still winning some games, but they have their own set of issues here, and I do think they are beatable. I'm not saying the Patriots will beat them, but I do think they're beatable. Um, when you start with the Bills, aside from Josh Allen, what are you worried about the most with this team, Steve? I mean, there's a lot of different issues on this team, and unfortunately for the Bills, one of your biggest opponents in an NFL season is just staying healthy, and unfortunately, they've lost a lot of big guys to key players to injury so far this season, which is always a big thing. But where do you look secondly when you're not talking about Josh Allen on this Bills team?
Well, I just think, they have the capability to be very explosive. They can make those big plays. They just haven't been doing it consistently this year. I mean, they had that one game against Miami, which was, I mean, you can see the capability there. But a lot of times they seem like clunky, where all the pieces aren't meshing together very well. And as we've watched, the Patriots this season, we're well aware of what that looks like. But a lot of times the Bills seem clunky, like things aren't meshing. But I mean, I think they have that big play capability, and they can light it up when Josh Allen, starts to feel it. And that's the thing with them. You could play them really good for 75% of the plays in a game, but that 25% will absolutely kill you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. And they have there's a lot of different challenges when you look at this team. And obviously the Stephon Diggs and Allen connection is huge. And I do think the Patriots have had issues. I think the biggest issue for them in this game will be just scoring. I mean, because we've seen this team. I know that seems a little obvious, but the Patriots have had problems scoring. As a whole this year, and you're going to need to put up some kind of points. Now, could you win in a rock fight? 100%. You absolutely could win in a rock fight. Now, I don't trust them right now to pick them to win that kind of a game because they haven't proven it against lesser opponents. But I think that if that would be your best chance to do it, I would love to see them kind of, deploy some kind of wrinkle, Steve, on the offensive side of the ball. They talked about how you would see a different offense last week or some different things going into that game. I don't think we really saw a whole lot different. I really think now would be the time. It's a divisional game. You're on a huge skid. Okay. You really need to go ahead and send some kind of message, because I think if you lose, again, it's going to be a tough, next 2 weeks. But if you go down both next 2 weeks to divisional opponents, half the year's gone. We were talking about how we didn't see guys necessarily quit. You're going to see guys starting to quit if you're 1-7. I think this is a really big game. If you're going to have even a chance to have some kind of season going, and I'm not saying that they're going to go on some kind of run, but I mean, if you're going to go ahead and respond even a little bit and make it at least entertaining, you got to try to steal one of these games here coming up, Steven. And winning that turnover battle, being able to deploy something on offense to go ahead and have some kind of wrinkle in there, and forcing Josh Allen to make some mistakes would be a good way to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that has been missing the last 2 weeks is, they haven't been able to generate any kind of pass rush. And that is scary when you're facing a Josh Allen. And to answer Todd's question, absolutely, they'll be playing zone this week.
Yeah, a ton of zone. And it doesn't help. They have a lot of their corners
banged up.
So your nickel backs are going to be able to, your nickel and dime package, defensive backs are going to be, players like a Miles Bryant, who hasn't been playing bad this year, honestly, at all. But you're better suited to play zone with the personnel you have right now.
Yeah, Jonathan Jones, I mean, you could tell he was laboring last week.
Yeah.
He was trying to play through that ankle injury, but they're supposed to get Jack back. So
I think if not this week, then next week. It seems like he's probably 2 weeks away.
Well, you never know.
You never know. It's a total guess. So,
but the fact that he's back at practice is, that's a good sign, because they'll need him these next 2 weeks if he's able to go.
Well, they really need Jonathan Jones for Miami, because he actually has a snowball stance.
Yeah. Well, he's played Tyreek Hill well in his career.
No, he has the speed. He's got fluid hips. I mean, there's a lot to like about Jonathan Jones. He does a lot of good things for this team. So you definitely will need him for something like that. And speaking of defensive backs, I saw Christian Gonzalez posted. We're recording the show October 18th at 12:51 p.m. Eastern. I saw that Christian Gonzalez last night posted from his hotel room that his surgery went well. So he's out with this torn labrum, which really is a total bummer. But At least surgery went well, so we had an update from him. I just kind of jogged my memory as we were talking about defensive backs. So
Yeah.
let's
And
get it. Let's get into it, Steve. Let's get into the three keys and predictions for this game. We'll start with the three keys. I'll go to you first. Talking about the Bills. What do the Patriots need to do to win this game?
right. I think number one is they have to slow down the game and run the football. The Bills are giving up 5.4 yards per carry for the season. And you're telling, that's points to they're missing Matt Milano.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
He's a great player.
Yeah. And you can see that now. I mean, a year or two ago, the thought of the Bills allowing a season average of 5.4 yards per carry would be unthinkable with him on the field. So I think that's the number one key. You have to be able to run the ball this week. We saw a little bit in the second half last week. I'm not going to say they were running the ball well, but they were running a lot better in the second half than they did in the first. And which leads into the second key. You have to start playing at the kickoff. You just can't sleepwalk through the first quarter and be down 14 points or more to the Bills and expect you're going to come back and win.
They need to do a shot of pre-workout, get some kind of take a cold shower. I don't know what they got to do, but they got to wake up, Steve, because it's like every single game it's like they just are kind of like in a malaise out there, and all of a sudden it's a 2-score game and you feel like the game is over at that point, and it's not even the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean they need to emulate those 1980s Raiders teams. Get a Tide box full of Coke in there and wake everybody up. Now, I'm not promoting drug use, folks. That was just,
I'm promoting it for this team.
Well, it was just a joke. But you know what I'm saying, right? But yeah, I mean, you got to stop this. And to me, again, it's coaching. They're not coming out prepared to play in the second halves, except for those two games. They've played much better in the second half than they did in the first. So they have to be able to get something going and, play with some emotion. In the third is they have to start winning the turnover battle because this team offensively is so struggling. They need some touchdowns via defense or, special teams, or give their offense a very short field because I don't see them hanging with Buffalo if they don't do it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. For me, my first key is it's a little similar to yours. They need some kind of a shot in the arm early. I would love for them to make some kind of defensive stand, some kind of a splash play. I don't care if it's a 30, 40 yard thing, on offense. If it's, sorry, dog got in the trash. They need some kind of jolt early in order to, just kind of spark this. They need a spark. They really do. Second thing for me is you have to win the turnover battle versus this team. The Bills have shown you time in and time out the last 4 or 5 years that if you give the ball to them, it's going to be one of those 34-17 kind of games, 34-13. I mean, this game could literally be over. If the Patriots go out there and they do what they've been doing and sleepwalk through this and they turn the ball over, this game's going to be over by halftime. So you need to win that turnover battle. And the third thing for me is you got to get off the field on third down. I mean, how many times against this Bills team have you as the Patriots, seemingly like these Bills drives are like boa constrictors and they just kind of squeeze the life out of you. And that was before when you had a relatively competent offense. I can't imagine what it would look like right now. So to me, Steve, winning that turnover battle, winning those things on third down and getting some kind of jolt at the beginning of the game, I think would give the Patriots the best chance to win. And look, for the record, I hate when we have some of these keys to victory that are just really super cliche. And I've been victim to that, or I've been certainly guilty of that the last couple of weeks. But let's be honest, this team is not a good team. And when you're not doing the fundamentals, when you're not doing kind of the basic crap that you need to do in order to win the games, that's what you got to get back to, and that's what they need to do.
Yeah, and offensively, like I said earlier, I mean, I want to see the young guys out there at wide receiver. I mean, Juju, I don't know if he's even back at practice yet, but he hasn't produced. Parker hasn't produced. Let these other guys play. We've been saying for almost a year and a half, more Kendrick Bourne. They went to him on Sunday. He catches 10 passes, 89 yards. And again, I mean, what is wrong with the thought process where, he has a game like this and maybe on Sunday they throw him 2 passes? I don't get it. I like Todd's comment about Dick McPherson would get this team going, or Pete Carroll. If that's what it takes, have Bill go off script a little bit, or have one of the assistant coaches go in and tear up a playbook and fling it against the wall and, go completely, Dick Butkus in there where they just want to go out and knock the heck out of people, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they need something. They need some kind of juice. You know what I mean? They really do. So we'll see. And I think Kendrick Bourne, to your point, Steve, too. They finally kind of played him in that slot role, and I thought he produced. I mean, I would love to see that happen more inside outside with him. I'd love to see Taekwon. I'd love to see Booty on the outside and just let it rip and just figure it out. Like I don't think you can, in my mind, Steve, you can't really be much worse. I mean, they've won one of their games. So the excuse cannot be, well, we're scared to lose on a rookie mistake. You're losing on veteran mistakes right now. So, I mean, I would at least know what you have, and I don't know how, again, I thought Devin McCourty's thoughts were good ones in regards to Devontae Parker and how he handled himself in the locker room versus in front of the microphone. I would add to that, I'd be curious to know what the coaches thought when he talks to the coaches too. Did they feel like that? Because if they don't, can't you send some kind of a message like, look, you're going to make mistakes, but if you do, you can't respond like this. I don't know. I would love for them to do something.
I'd make him a healthy scratch this week.
I would love to. I just would.
Because I want to see Boutte back out there. I want to see Thornton. And if you lose, you lose.
So be it.
But so be it. But at least you're giving these younger guys a shot where the older guys, the veterans, they're not producing. And like you said at the beginning of the show, if, like a guy like Boutte, if Bourne, Juju, and Parker are all lighting it up every single week, then you'd say, okay, he's just having a tough time cracking the lineup. But they're not doing that.
Right. Yeah.
I want to see, obviously continue to feed Bourne more because he seems like the only guy that's getting it done right now.
Well, and he brings a good energy too.
Yeah.
I like the energy.
He's always positive.
He's always positive, and unlike this show, so he's always positive. But I just think he brings a little something that they really need right now, which is some positive, some good energy, and it matters. We've seen it. So look, final thoughts on the game, Steve, or on the week. For me is I really don't like to sound like a broken record, so I apologize for this, but I really would like to see this team not go out there and sleepwalk through the beginning of these games. We've said it a couple of times. I really want to see them kind of come out and do something early in this game. Give the fans something. If you lose, then so be it. But I would love for them to go out and try to take maybe gamble a little bit. Maybe do a fake punt. Maybe do something. I mean, something. Do some kind of trick play. They need something because you're going out right now And you're not just lining up and getting your ass kicked. You're lining up and you're either having a mental error, some kind of a coaching mistake, some kind of turnover, some kind of bad body language, it's just like, just mix it up. They need to do it. That's my final thought. Off to you, Steve.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, it's frustrating to watch them, because these first quarters, I always, cringe when the game starts because that they're going to make stupid mistakes, take penalties, just laissez-faire through the first quarter. And then, they're double digits behind. Like I said, this week, I want to see them come up with some fire,
Yep. I agree.
And, I could even handle a loss this week if they lose in a shootout to the Bills, like 38-35, something like that. I would be actually happy with that because at least we'd see something moving forward. Okay, we're capable,
Yeah. I mean, show up and compete. That's what we want to see. If you lose, then you lose, but at least compete, so that to me would be a big thing too. I just want to thank everybody again. We've had a lot of, Steve, this season really in general, but the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had a lot of new commenters, which is cool. We've had a lot of, we haven't seen some of our, we haven't seen some of our kind of regular listeners. Like, I don't know where the heck Claire's been. Maybe because we didn't talk about tight ends at all today. And I really am worried about Chris. So Chris, Claire, I'm looking for you guys. But we've had some really, some cool interaction, a lot of new people. So I want to thank everyone who's listening live, commenting. We try to stay as regular as we can in terms of show times, which is usually Wednesdays around this time. But, such as life, things get in the way. So we try to be as regular as possible. But, we appreciate everyone who's taking the time in to listen, to download. And again, if you haven't already, please subscribe and to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, share, leave us a review. Keeps us high on the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. I want to thank Ian Logue again for, kind of being the the leader, our great leader for PatsFans.com. And I want to thank Steve Balestrieri for joining me as always. We are going to be here next week, probably around the same time. Steve and I will talk about it. We'll shoot a message on Twitter to let you guys know. But, here's to the Patriots, hopefully getting off the schneid and responding this week against the Buffalo Bills.
Well, I already heard that the Massachusetts State Police on Sunday afternoon are blocking the Tobin Bridge.
Oh, yeah, they'll need to because they'll be pushing them out of the way if I have to swan dive off. One more game like this these last couple of weeks, and I'm gonna be having a higher therapy bill, and we'll be back for your therapy bill next week to go ahead and talk about everything that happens going on in the Patriots world. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you guys all next week. Thank you for listening.